Light exposure is the most powerful and direct way to control your circadian rhythm because it acts as the primary signal that tells your brain what time it is. At the center of this system is the suprachiasmatic nucleus, a small cluster of neurons in the brain that functions as the body's master clock. This clock does not rely on your watch or external schedules. It relies on light entering your eyes and being detected by specialized cells in the retina. These cells send signals directly to the brain, allowing it to adjust timing of sleep, wakefulness, hormone release, and overall alertness. One of the key principles is that the timing of light exposure matters more than the total amount. Light early in your biological morning has a different effect than light late at night. When you expose your eyes to bright light soon after waking, it sends a signal that advances your internal clock. This means your body will begin to feel sleepy earlier in the evening and wake up earlier the next day. This is particularly useful when trying to overcome jet lag after traveling east or when adjusting to an earlier schedule. In contrast, exposure to light in the evening or at night delays your circadian rhythm. This pushes your sleep time later and makes it harder to fall asleep at your desired time. Artificial lighting, especially from screens and overhead lights, can have a significant impact here because it mimics some of the effects of daylight. Even moderate light exposure at night can suppress melatonin, the hormone that signals the body to prepare for sleep, and shift your internal clock in the wrong direction. For people dealing with jet lag, controlling light exposure becomes a strategic tool. If you travel across time zones, your internal clock is no longer aligned with the local day-night cycle. By exposing yourself to light at the appropriate times in the new location, you can accelerate the adjustment process. For example, seeking light in the morning at your destination helps shift your clock earlier, while avoiding light at night prevents delays. In some cases, avoiding light at certain times, such as wearing sunglasses, can be just as important as seeking it at others. Shift work presents a similar challenge, but in a more ongoing way. When you need to be awake at night, bright light during your work hours can help promote alertness and signal to your brain that it is daytime for your body. At the same time, minimizing light exposure after your shift, especially on the way home, helps prepare your system for sleep. This controlled use of light can partially shift your circadian rhythm or at least reduce the mismatch between your schedule and your biology. The intensity and quality of light also matter. Natural sunlight is the most effective because it is much brighter than typical indoor lighting and contains a broad spectrum of wavelengths. Even on a cloudy day, outdoor light is significantly stronger than indoor light. When sunlight is not available, artificial bright lights can still be useful, but they generally need to be closer and more intense to have a similar effect. Another important point is that the circadian system responds best to consistent patterns. Regular exposure to light at the same times each day reinforces the timing of your internal clock, making sleep and wakefulness more predictable. Irregular light exposure, on the other hand, can confuse the system and make it harder to maintain a stable rhythm. By using light intentionally, seeking it at the right times and avoiding it when necessary, you can directly influence your biological clock, making it easier to adjust to new schedules, reduce jet lag, and improve overall sleep quality. Consistency in sleep and wake timing is one of the most powerful ways to stabilize your circadian rhythm because the brain relies on repeated patterns to predict when to initiate sleep and wakefulness. The circadian system is not just reactive to light, it also learns from behavior. When you go to sleep and wake up at similar times each day, you provide a reliable signal that helps align internal processes such as hormone release, body temperature, and alertness cycles. Over time, this regularity makes it easier to fall asleep, wake up, and maintain stable energy throughout the day. The brain's internal clock works best when it can anticipate what is going to happen next. If sleep and wake times are constantly changing, the system has difficulty locking into a consistent rhythm. This can lead to a mismatch between when your body is ready to sleep and when you are trying to sleep, resulting in difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. It can also affect how alert you feel during waking hours, often leading to periods of low energy or reduced focus. Consistency does not mean perfection, but it does mean reducing variability as much as possible. Even shifts of 1 or 2 hours on a regular basis can disrupt the circadian system, especially if they occur frequently. For example, staying up much later on some days and waking up later the next day can create a pattern similar to mild jet lag, sometimes referred to as social jet lag. This repeated shifting prevents the system from stabilizing, making sleep less efficient and less restorative. For individuals dealing with jet lag, maintaining consistent sleep and wake times in the new time zone is essential for adaptation. Even if sleep is initially difficult, going to bed and waking up according to the local schedule helps train the circadian system to align with the new environment. Combined with appropriate light exposure, this consistency accelerates the adjustment process and reduces the duration of misalignment. In the context of shift work, consistency becomes more challenging but also more important. When possible, keeping a stable schedule across workdays and non-workdays allows the body to adapt more effectively. Constantly switching between day and night schedules creates ongoing disruption, making it difficult for the circadian system to establish a stable pattern. Even if the schedule is unconventional, maintaining it consistently is better than frequent changes. Wake-up time is often more important than bedtime in establishing consistency. Waking up at the same time each day anchors the circadian rhythm and influences when you will feel sleepy later. Even if sleep duration varies slightly, a stable wake-up time helps regulate the timing of the entire cycle. This is because wake-up time determines when light exposure, activity, and other daily behaviors occur, all of which feed back into the circadian system. Behavioral cues also reinforce consistency. Eating meals, exercising, and engaging in regular activities at similar times each day strengthen the signals that define your daily rhythm. These cues act alongside light exposure to help the brain maintain alignment between internal and external time. Over time, consistent sleep and wake timing reduces the effort required to fall asleep and wake up. The body begins to initiate these processes automatically, leading to more efficient and restorative sleep. This stability not only improves sleep quality, but also enhances cognitive performance, mood, and overall health by keeping internal systems synchronized and predictable. Managing caffeine and sleep pressure is essential for controlling alertness and sleep quality because both directly influence the brain's drive to stay awake or fall asleep. Sleep pressure is primarily governed by a molecule called adenosine, which builds up in the brain the longer you are awake. As adenosine accumulates, it increases the feeling of sleepiness, creating a natural drive to rest. When you sleep, adenosine levels decrease, resetting the system for the next cycle. This process works alongside the circadian rhythm, but it operates independently, meaning you can feel sleepy due to high sleep pressure, even if your circadian timing is not perfectly aligned. Caffeine interacts directly with this system by blocking adenosine receptors in the brain. Instead of reducing adenosine itself, caffeine prevents the brain from detecting it, temporarily masking the feeling of sleepiness. This can be useful for increasing alertness, especially during periods when you need to stay awake despite rising sleep pressure, such as during shift work or after travel. However, because caffeine does not remove adenosine, the underlying pressure continues to build. Once the effects of caffeine wear off, the accumulated adenosine can lead to a stronger feeling of fatigue. The timing of caffeine intake is critical. Consuming caffeine early in your wake period can enhance alertness and improve performance without significantly interfering with sleep later on. However, caffeine has a relatively long duration of action, often lasting several hours. If consumed too late in the day, it can delay the onset of sleep by continuing to block adenosine signals when the body is trying to wind down. This can lead to difficulty falling asleep and reduce sleep quality, even if total sleep duration appears unchanged. For individuals dealing with jet lag or shift work, caffeine can be used strategically but must be aligned with the desired sleep schedule. For example, using caffeine at the beginning of a night shift can help maintain alertness during work hours, but avoiding it later in the shift helps ensure that it does not interfere with the ability to sleep afterward. Similarly, when adjusting to a new time zone, limiting caffeine to the local morning and early afternoon supports alignment with the new schedule. Napping is another tool that interacts with sleep pressure. Short naps can reduce adenosine levels and temporarily restore alertness, which can be beneficial in situations of sleep deprivation or before periods of required wakefulness. However, longer or poorly timed naps can reduce sleep pressure too much, making it harder to fall asleep at the desired time. This is particularly relevant when trying to establish a consistent sleep schedule, as excessive napping can disrupt the natural buildup of sleep drive. There is also an interaction between caffeine and sleep pressure over repeated cycles. Regular use of caffeine, especially in large amounts, can lead to a reliance on it to counteract fatigue while also potentially disrupting sleep quality. This creates a cycle where poor sleep increases the need for caffeine, and caffeine further interferes with sleep. Managing this balance is important for maintaining stable energy levels. Individual sensitivity to caffeine varies, meaning some people may need to adjust timing and dosage more carefully. Factors such as metabolism, tolerance, and overall sleep quality influence how strongly caffeine affects the system. By understanding how adenosine builds sleep pressure and how caffeine interacts with this process, you can use both strategically to support alertness when needed, while preserving the ability to fall asleep and maintain restorative sleep. Temperature regulation plays a significant role in determining when you feel alert and when you feel ready to sleep, because it is tightly linked to the circadian rhythm. The body follows a natural temperature cycle across the day, where core body temperature gradually rises during waking hours and then begins to drop as you approach sleep. This decline in temperature is not just a consequence of sleep, it is a signal that helps initiate the process of falling asleep. In the evening, the body starts to lose heat through mechanisms such as increased blood flow to the skin, particularly in the hands, feet, and face. This process helps lower core body temperature, creating conditions that are favorable for sleep onset. If this cooling process is disrupted, it can delay the ability to fall asleep. For example, being in an environment that is too warm or engaging in stimulating activities that raise body temperature late at night can interfere with this natural decline, making it harder to transition into sleep. You can use this temperature mechanism to your advantage by creating conditions that support the natural drop in body temperature. A cooler sleeping environment is one of the most effective strategies. Lower ambient temperature helps facilitate heat loss, signaling to the brain that it is time to sleep. This is why people often sleep better in slightly cooler rooms compared to warmer ones. Additionally, taking a warm shower or bath before bed can paradoxically promote sleep. The warmth causes blood vessels in the skin to dilate, and when you step out into a cooler environment, heat is lost more rapidly, accelerating the drop in core temperature. In the morning, the opposite process occurs. Core body temperature begins to rise, which is associated with increased alertness and readiness for activity. Supporting this rise can help you wake up more effectively and feel more energized. Physical movement, exposure to light, and even a slightly warmer environment can contribute to this increase in temperature, reinforcing the transition from sleep to wakefulness. For individuals dealing with jet lag or shift work, temperature can be used alongside light exposure to help shift the circadian rhythm. Aligning temperature changes with the desired sleep schedule, cooling the body before sleep and increasing temperature upon waking, provides an additional signal to the brain about when to rest and when to be alert. While light remains the most powerful cue, temperature acts as a supportive mechanism that can enhance the overall effect. Temperature also interacts with sleep stages. A lower core body temperature is associated with deeper stages of sleep, which are important for physical recovery and restoration. If temperature remains elevated during the night, it can disrupt these stages, leading to lighter and less restorative sleep. This can result in feeling unrefreshed even after an adequate amount of time in bed. Clothing, bedding, and environmental factors all influence how effectively the body can regulate temperature during sleep. Breathable materials and the ability to adjust layers can help maintain an optimal range throughout the night. Individual preferences may vary, but the general principle remains that facilitating heat loss supports better sleep quality. By understanding and controlling how your body gains and loses heat, you can align temperature changes with your desired sleep and wake times, making it easier to fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling more alert and restored. Behavioral anchors such as meal timing, exercise, and daily routines play a crucial role in reinforcing the circadian rhythm, because they provide additional signals that help the brain organize time beyond light exposure alone. While light is the dominant cue for the central clock in the brain, these behaviors act as secondary time givers, helping align peripheral systems throughout the body, including metabolism, digestion, and hormone release. When these behaviors occur at consistent times, they strengthen the overall timing system, making sleep and wake patterns more stable and predictable. Meal timing is one of the most influential behavioral anchors because it directly interacts with metabolic processes. The body expects food intake at certain times, and when meals are consumed consistently, it helps regulate blood sugar, hormone release, and energy availability in a rhythmic pattern. Eating late at night or at irregular times can disrupt this rhythm, sending mixed signals to the body about when it should be active versus resting. Aligning meals with your active period and avoiding large meals close to bedtime supports better synchronization between the digestive system and the sleep-wake cycle. Exercise is another powerful signal. Physical activity increases alertness, raises body temperature, and activates the nervous system, all of which promote wakefulness. When exercise is performed at consistent times, it reinforces the timing of your active phase. For example, exercising earlier in the day can support alertness and help anchor your circadian rhythm to a daytime schedule. Intense exercise too close to bedtime, however, can delay sleep by keeping the body in a more activated state, although lighter movement may still be beneficial for relaxation. Daily routines, even seemingly simple ones, also contribute to circadian stability. Activities such as working, social interaction, and even mental tasks create patterns that the brain begins to associate with specific times of day. Over time, these repeated patterns become cues that signal when to be alert and when to begin winding down. For example, a consistent pre-sleep routine, such as dimming lights, reducing stimulation, and engaging in calming activities, can help the brain transition more easily into sleep mode. For individuals dealing with jet lag or shift work, behavioral anchors become especially important because they can help compensate for disruptions in light exposure or irregular schedules. Even if the timing is unconventional, keeping meals, exercise, and routines consistent relative to your wake period helps create a stable internal structure. This reduces confusion within the circadian system and improves overall adaptation. There is also an interaction between these behaviors and hormonal systems. For instance, regular meal timing can influence insulin sensitivity and energy regulation, while consistent exercise can affect stress hormones and sleep quality. These effects feed back into the circadian system, reinforcing the alignment between physiological processes and daily timing. Another key point is that inconsistency in these behaviors can weaken circadian signals. Skipping meals, varying exercise times widely, or having unpredictable daily patterns can create internal desynchronization, where different systems in the body are not aligned with each other. This can lead to reduced energy, impaired sleep, and overall decreased performance. By establishing consistent behavioral anchors, you provide the brain and body with reliable cues that complement light exposure, helping to stabilize the circadian rhythm and improve both sleep quality and daytime function. Gradual adaptation and patience are essential when trying to overcome jet lag, adjust to shift work, or recover from sleeplessness because the circadian system does not change instantly. The internal clock in the brain shifts at a limited rate, typically by about 1 hour per day under ideal conditions. This means that any attempt to rapidly change sleep and wake times without supporting the underlying biology is likely to fail or result in poor sleep quality and reduced alertness. The reason for this slow adjustment lies in how the circadian rhythm is regulated. The suprachiasmatic nucleus relies on repeated signals, particularly light exposure, to shift its timing. Each day, the timing of light exposure can move the clock slightly earlier or later, but these shifts accumulate gradually. Trying to force a large change in a single day, such as staying awake far beyond your usual bedtime or attempting to sleep much earlier than your body is ready for, often leads to fragmented sleep or an inability to fall asleep at all. This gradual nature of adaptation is especially evident in jet lag. When you travel across multiple time zones, your internal clock remains aligned with your original location. Even if you immediately adopt the local schedule, your biology will lag behind. By consistently exposing yourself to light at the appropriate times and maintaining regular sleep and wake patterns, you allow the circadian system to shift incrementally toward the new time zone. The process may take several days, depending on the number of time zones crossed, but each day of consistent behavior moves you closer to alignment. Shift work presents a more complex challenge because the schedule may not remain stable long enough for full adaptation. In these cases, partial adjustment is often more realistic. By consistently aligning light exposure, sleep timing, and behavioral cues with your work schedule, you can reduce the mismatch between your internal clock and external demands. However, frequent changes in shift timing can prevent full adaptation, making it important to manage expectations and focus on minimizing disruption rather than achieving perfect alignment. Patience is also important in the context of sleeplessness. When sleep is disrupted, there is often a tendency to try to compensate quickly, such as by spending more time in bed or taking long naps. While this may seem helpful, it can interfere with the natural buildup of sleep pressure and delay the reestablishment of a stable rhythm. Allowing the body to gradually rebuild its sleep drive and maintaining consistent timing supports a more sustainable recovery. Another key aspect is that the circadian system responds best to consistency over intensity. Small, repeated signals, such as regular light exposure, consistent wake times, and stable routines, are more effective than occasional large efforts to shift the schedule. This is because the brain integrates these signals over time, adjusting its internal timing based on patterns rather than isolated events. There is also variability between individuals in how quickly adaptation occurs. Factors such as age, prior sleep habits, and overall health can influence the rate of adjustment. Recognizing this variability helps set realistic expectations and reduces frustration during the process. By respecting the natural pace of the circadian system and applying consistent, well-timed cues, gradual adaptation allows the body to realign its internal clock in a way that is stable, sustainable, and supportive of both sleep quality and daytime performance. When you combine all of these elements, light exposure, consistent timing, caffeine management, temperature control, behavioral anchors, and gradual adaptation, you create a system that works with your biology rather than against it. Instead of trying to force sleep or alertness, you guide the underlying mechanisms that regulate them, allowing your circadian rhythm to realign in a stable and predictable way. Over time, this leads to deeper sleep, more reliable energy, and a greater ability to handle challenges like jet lag, shift work, and irregular schedules without constant disruption.